Good morning and welcome to the 2024 Africa Day celebrations. It's good to see everyone bright and early this morning. If you haven't had breakfast at any point in time, please feel free to go to the table and grab something and come back and sit down. We have a deep culture of respect in Africa, and one of them is respect for time. And so we're going to start right away. And to start off the day with opening remarks, I'm going to invite the Devon Patrick Endowed Chair for Political Economy and Social Innovation, who also is the founder of the African Scholars Forum, Dr. Rita Kiki Edozie. Professor Edozie is currently, like I said, the chair of Political, Economic, and Social Innovation and professor of Global Governance at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. She is the university's former interim dean of the John McCormick School of Policy and Global Studies. Professor Edozie has been a teacher, scholar, and an academic administrator of graduate education and undergraduate studies for well over 20 years. Prior to UMass Boston, she was a professor of international relations at Michigan State University, St. James Madison College of Public and International Affairs, and the director of the African American and African Studies at the university's College of Art and Letters. She was a former deputy director of the Institute of African Studies at Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs, and she is an accomplished scholar, as you all know, and an author of several academic books and scholarly articles on global development, democratization, African affairs, and race and identity. Her recent book, Africa's New Global Politics, Regionalism and International Relations, received Choice Magazine's 2022 rating as highly recommended reading, and she's the former chair, the founding chair of the African Scholars Forum at UMass Boston. Professor Edozie, it's always an honor to introduce you.
Thank you. Thank you, Abby. Always a pleasure to listen to what others say about you, but thank you for those generous comments. Now, good morning, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I think Abby was very kind to us as Africans. We don't do African time. We start on time. So we want to have, we have a really fascinating a long program for you today. We're here 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and so we want to get the program going. We have a lot of people that are going to come in and go out. We have about 150 registrants. We have a lot of people online as well. So welcome, everyone. We're going to feed you all day, including this morning. I'm seeing this food there, and it's untouched, so please, please, help yourself to Sodesco's, munchies, this morning, and make sure that you show them that the food was good, and don't leave it there, empty. Look, it's an honor, really, to welcome you to UMass Boston's Africa Day celebrations again this year. This is our 6th year annual event. And this year's event is going to be exceptional because of the inclusion of a first-time regional conference sponsored by WARA. WARA is the West African Research Association. For a couple of years now, WARA has sponsored regional conferences across the nation with the purpose of convening scholars of Africa in the sub-regions of the United States to support, African studies and African scholarship and African issues engagement. UMass Boston is really excited to be the host of today's Northeast Regional WARA Academic Conference in conjunction with our annual Africa Day. At the Africa Scholars Forum, who is housing and hosting this event, we chose the topic of democratic backsliding in West Africa to engage and address the critical policy issues of our day. Back in July last year, as we reflected on the activities of the next year, the coup in Niger against what we assumed was a very popularly democratically elected leader, Bazoum, took us by surprise and forced us into action. A fourth major coup in West Africa, we agreed there is a wave, and we should talk about it and do something about it. In choosing the topic, we're not targeting Africa or West Africa for negative narratives. Democratic backsliding, simply understood as the reversal or erosion of democracy, is a universal phenomenon. It's a universal problem. American politics, since 2016 especially, has been especially challenged by democratic backsliding as well. So as such, how do we deal with the West African phenomenon of democratic backsliding? What the African Union calls unconstitutional changes in government, especially manifest by the coup d'etat, is simply one strain of a larger, critical, global issue. We have convened several scholars of African affairs, from distinguished faculty to doctoral students from universities in the US to universities in the continent who are live streaming, through the voices and expertise of these several keynote speakers and 25 panelists, to examine democratization challenges, limitations, and opportunities in the West African region. We will consider responses to a range of questions. Are liberal democratic regimes and institutions consolidating in West Africa? What is the relationship between democracy and development in the region? What role does insecurity, human rights, and terrorism play in consolidating or reversing democracy in West Africa? What role are the resurgence of an anti-colonial struggle and the movement to decolonize Africa playing? And with ECOWAS and the African Union playing resurgent roles in responding to coups and democratization initiatives in the region, what role are African regionalism and sub-regionalism playing in addressing democratic reversal? As usual, in our Africa Day delivery style that underscores, I always say, the essence of politics and prose, we have a full day of activities for you today that, while dedicated to intellectual exchange and reflection of democracy and authoritarianism, does so by side with music, cultural activities, food and drinks, and networking and coming together. I want to acknowledge a few of our visitors to campus today. First is Ambassador Kinza Jawara-Njai, who has graced us with her presence since yesterday. We are honored and grateful for her high-level dignitary presence as the ECOWAS ambassador to the United Nations. Extremely important to our discussions of Africa at the Africa Scholars Forum at UMass Boston are two things: amplifying African voices on African issues, and the other is centering practitioner and policy expertise in our academic discussions. Ambassador Jawara-Njai joins a cohort of Africa Day high-level senior leaders from the continent who embody these ideals. Welcome again. I should also tell you, thank you so much. Thank you. A little dry cough today. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Ambassador Jawara-Njai has donated her travel expenses and her honorarium to the Africa Scholars Forum Scholarship Fund at UMass Boston. Yes, 2 doctoral students at the McCormick School are recipients of $1,000 each scholarships from that fund. Congratulations to Rebecca Yemo, who will be getting her PhD in May and has written a dissertation on human rights in Africa. And congratulations to Dennis Juko, who will also be awarded his PhD in May and has written a dissertation on transnational justice in Africa. So they are the recipients of your generous, gift. Thank you, Ambassador. I'd also like to give a special welcome to our second keynote speaker, Ms. Oge Onwogu, who is the DC Woodrow Wilson Center's Director of the Africa Program. Welcome and thank you for coming, Oge. Oge also fulfills our African study aspirations as a senior leader on African affairs in the center of U.S. foreign policy. We need leaders like you. Thank you, Oge, and thank you for your presence. And finally, online is Dr. Gilles Yabi, who is joining us from Dakar, Senegal. He's the director of a self-founded think tank in Dakar, Senegal. It's called the West African Think Tank Initiative, WATHI. He is an intellectual thinker on questions of democracy in Africa. Welcome and thank you, Dr. Yabi, online. Up front now, I would also like to acknowledge our provost, Provost Joseph Berger, who is the provost and vice chancellor of academic affairs, always for his strong, deep support for Africa programming at the McCormick School and at UMass Boston, and graciously always his presence and his sponsorship. Thank you so much, Provost. In a little while, just one more minute to thank everybody else, and then we're going to have you up, and because the Provost has to go to another meeting. I would like to, up front now, because we're going to have a long day, 8 to 8, and I might forget, I'd just like to thank a few people who made today's event happen. Dr. Celia Idika-Kalu, she is the current chair of the Africa Scholars Forum. I couldn't have handed over the baton to a greater intellectual. Where's Cecilia? There she is. Mover, shaker, thank you. Of course, our team at the Africa Scholars Forum this year is 2 PhD students, Dominic Ofai. Is he here? He's a moderator here. He's Ghanaian who loves Nigeria. I always joke with him. And Amadou Jallo over there, who have been critical to this program. Charlotte Nambi, who is the McCormick School's coordinator of African academic programs and events, will be here shortly. She is critical to this program. Thank you, Charlotte. Gifty DeBorders Jackson is the school's senior program assistant, critical to the program. Thank you. I'd like to thank Adunia Lemmy, who is the current interim director of the McCormick School. Thank you so much for making this program happen this year. And all the volunteers, there's a lot of names, I'm going to be thanking you name by name at the end of the program, but thank you, volunteers, you really just, for coming out and supporting, this great program. I also see that we are graced with the sponsorship and support of the director. I know you're moving me along, but I must acknowledge the director of the African Studies Center at Boston University, Mark Storella, who has not only always graced, his presence. I mean, he's the leader of a Title VI Africa program at BU, the leading program in the Northeast, always graciously supports this program. So Mark and Elsie, his associate director, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. John Jessup, Carissa, the IT staff, catering services, Suya joined, Cecilia Lizote, named the best chef in the city of Boston, and to our sponsors, Director Wara, Jenny Parker, who can't make it today. There is a little piece on the Wara in your booklets. Please read it. A very important organization housed at Boston University, but serves the entire world on issues on West Africa. I'm on the board of that program, so it's a very important program. Thank you, Jenny and Wara. And everybody else, Joseph Cooper, I'd like to thank him as well. He is the special advisor of the Office of Black Life at the Chancellor's Office. He's also a professor of sports administration. He's always been very supportive of Africa programming as the core of Black programming on campus. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you to all the panelists who have come, and I know many are more trickling in, and of course today's attendees. Have a great program, everyone, and enjoy. Thank you. Now, Dominic is going to introduce the provost. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dozie. So the next speaker is the Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Dr. Joseph B. Berger is the Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs here at UMass Boston. His work is informed by a commitment to social justice, promoting equity and excellence, particularly in higher education within and across local, national, and international communities. Internationally, Provost has worked and provided leadership for projects in countries like Malawi, China, Russia, Palestine, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. So you can see that he has really reached out globally in terms of his experience and work. He has also consulted in Chile, Colombia, Egypt, Qatar, Poland, and the Philippines. He has authored a dozen of journal articles, books, and chapters, research reports, and served on several boards and top journals. Provost has also received 85 million in terms of funding for his work from agencies such as the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, Ford Foundation, and the Niamey Education Foundation. He has won several national awards for his scholarship from associations such as Association for the Study of Higher Education, American College Personnel Association, and National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, NASPA. Distinguished guests, welcome Provost Berger.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, and thank you, Dr. Edozie, for providing the opening remarks and the leadership for this really important day. So I feel very privileged to be the provost here at UMass Boston, and one of the reasons I feel so privileged is because UMass Boston is so dedicated to reciprocally and authentically being engaged with the world. And that Africa, right, for us, is part of our home. It's our home because we welcome and bring so many students and scholars here to UMass Boston to enrich our learning environment, but also because we have the privilege of being here in the U.S. capital of higher education, Boston, to be able to engage and do work where it's not just we're going out, right, to share our expertise, but we're going out to work throughout Africa with so many of our colleagues and our students, not just so that we can do something and accomplish something on our own, but so that we can work shoulder to shoulder. We can learn with and from a wide range of experts, some who are academic and some who are not, about the most important issues of the day. As the third most diverse university in the United States, it is very important that with integrity and authenticity, we engage with the cultural and linguistic wealth of the world. And this includes Africa. I myself have been privileged to be able to work in Africa on several projects and spent some time living with my family. It's been a little while now, in Malawi, working with Chancellor College at the University of Malawi. That was a transformational experience for me and my young children at the time. They're not so young anymore. But it's left an indelible mark on their lives in the way that they approach the world. And that's what we need to do in this day and age, is to find the ways that we can connect, not just professionally, but personally, to reach across culture, to better understand each other, and to look at ways that development is a multi-directional process and not a one-way process. And the history of colonialism from the global north, has made that actually very difficult. And it makes it difficult for those of us who are in privileged positions here in countries like the United States to recognize our responsibilities moving forward to address the legacies of colonialism. In higher education, and I'm a scholar who studies higher education, right, was built to be an exclusive, not an inclusive, enterprise. So we have a responsibility to work with others around the world to progressively make positive impacts that way. Here at UMass Boston, we launched in the fall of 2022 a new 10-year strategic plan for the times. And in that strategic plan, we identified 4 grand scholarly challenges that are areas that we could use our established strengths as scholars and scholarly expertise on campus to address real-world challenges. The challenges are defined enough to be clear, the area that we need to, areas we need to address, but broad enough that they would require multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary approaches to inform them. And I think that the work here that we're all doing together today is very relevant across all 4 of those grand scholarly challenges. And particularly in a day and age when, on the one hand, it's easier for us to connect than ever before. Again, we're holding a conference with so many folks who can, right, zoom in from all over the world. We don't all have to be right here in this room. So we're more connected than ever before, yet democracy is very, very fragile right now. And as Dr. Edozie noted, it is fragile around the world. And so when we look at the work that we have to do, both here and abroad, again, to learn from each other, it informs, our work can inform these challenges in 4 distinct areas. First, that one of our grand scholarly challenges is advancing an equitable and just society with local and global dimensions. And there is a relationship between what we do locally, whether it's right here in Boston, or it's in Ghana, or Nigeria, or Malawi, wherever it may be. None of our work in advancing a just society is disconnected. So what we do in local communities and local societies influences the institutions that are necessary for a strong democracy. So that work informs the theme of the conference. A second grand scholarly challenge is education for the future and the role of lifelong learning, not strictly in traditional educational settings, but that transcend, right, where and how we learn, is also important. The ways in which we learn as the tools of pedagogy. Zoom has become a pedagogical tool. AI has becoming a rapidly evolving pedagogical tool. So how do we purposefully and intentionally use these tools to improve learning and education in ways that prepare all of us to better address the challenges of the future? Third, the fragility of democracy, and again, as Dr. Edozie noted, partly becomes from increased insecurity around the world. And two key drivers of insecurity are related to the other two grand scholarly challenges that we've identified. One is addressing health disparities. With all the advances we have made in healthcare and medicine, in terms of who has access to better healthcare, better preventative medicine, better public health, that varies greatly depending on who you are and what communities you live in this country, and it varies greatly depending on, where you live in the world. We must address those disparities if we are going to help reduce the insecurity that contributes to the fragility of democracy. And finally, the existential threat of our times, which is climate change. And so how do we address equitable impacts of climate change? The global north is the primary producer of the emissions and the greenhouse gases and consumer of the natural resources that contribute to the rapidly changing and deteriorating climate. So how do we work with others who are all feeling the effects, but particularly those populations that are most vulnerable to the effects of climate change, that are most at risk, are not necessarily the folks that are the key drivers of it. So how do we work together to address that, again, as a source of insecurity that threatens our democracies? So we are truly a global society at this point. And we must come together and learn with and from each other. And Africa is the fastest growing in terms of percentage of population continent in the world. It is the home to many countries with a range of challenges and opportunities. And we are, again, very honored to be, as a university, to have such deep and rich ties with African colleagues and partners. And it's always my hope that this day continues on the tradition of building networks, of building relationships, of building understanding, of building knowledge, but ultimately of building action-oriented next steps for how we can better address these challenges together, and how by working with our African colleagues and partners that we can make contributions, but we can be enriched at the very same time. This forum has always done that. It is part of a much larger fabric of the work that we do here at UMass Boston, in which we center Africa as an important part of our identity, but we have no laurels to rest on. So I'm looking forward to everybody having an outstanding experience today. I'm grateful for our honored and distinguished guests, and I thank all of you who are here in person and online for being here to contribute to the 2024 Africa Forum. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Provost Bear. Indeed, we are here for the times, responsive to the challenges of our times. The African Scholars Forum is not just about the challenges of the global South, but also the opportunities. And someone consistently talks about the opportunities of the global South. And so it gives me great pleasure, and it's an honor to introduce to you Professor Adugna Lemi, who is the current interim director at the McCormick Graduate School of Policy and Global Studies and a professor of economics. Since September 2015, Professor Adugna has been serving as chairperson at the Department of Economics at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. His research and teaching interest, and indeed his work, focuses on issues of global trade, investment, and the living conditions of people who live in developing countries. Specifically, he works on trade issues related to poverty, foreign aid, and the efficiency of firms in Africa. He also works on issues of international trade and finance, economic development, international trade and finance, international corporations, development economics, international political economy, poverty and income dynamics, microeconomics, and econometrics. Cited widely in several reputable journals, one of his most recent projects includes Catch Me If You Can, Trade, Misinvoicing, and Capital Flight Revisited. And he's a member of the board of the African Scholars Forum. Professor Lemi.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2024 Africa Day. I would like to thank organizers of the event. I would like to thank Kiki, Professor Idozi. I would like to thank Cecilia for your work in putting this together. I would also like to thank graduate students who contributed to this event, and also the two staff members of the McCormick Graduate School Director's Office, Gifty and Charlotte, for your time, for your effort to put this event together, and for making it a success so far. I would also like to thank Ambassador Kinza Jawara-Njai. Thank you for accepting our invitation and for coming to speak to us today. And I would also like to thank Director Oga Onubogu, again, for accepting our invitation for coming here to speak to us. I also would like to thank the generous financial support from different offices here at UMass Boston, including the Provost Office, and also contributions, support from area schools, including the Boston University, for your support, for collaborating with us to put this event together. Let me say a little bit about the McCormick Graduate School. This event is squarely in line with the mission and values of the McCormick Graduate School as we strive to promote policy studies, both at the global and local levels. McCormick Graduate School runs similar events, including topics ranging from the Middle East, ranging into the local housing, education issues here in Boston. Such events help raise the profile of not only the McCormick Graduate School, but also the university. So the McCormick Graduate School will continue to host and to support such events to bring scholars together for the common goods, and also to attract faculty and students to the McCormick Graduate School to have similar and even more expanded topics of studies where we have planned to expand to the Latin American countries, to European countries to have similar events and similar conferences here on our campus. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank presenters, panelists, and people who attend this conference. This is a timely topic, and it's also an area that is very close to my research in terms of development, political economy in African countries. I have done work mostly in all African countries, but although it is mostly trade, capital flow topics, there is no way you can separate this from politics. So every political event relates to every economic activity or any kind of economic research that we do on this front. I hope the presenters and panelists will provide insightful recommendations to policymakers in Africa. And I hope that we'll continue such events, conference number 2, that come next year, we'll have even a bigger event of similar type. Again, welcome to the conference. I would like to welcome all of you, and I hope that you will enjoy the full-day event here, and looking forward to hear from the presenters and the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dunya. The next in line is the Special Advisor for Black Life, and he is going to present virtually. I'm happy to introduce Dr. Joseph N. Cooper. He's a professor at the Department of Counseling and School Psychology here at UMass Boston. He's also the inaugural Dr. J. Kate Motley Endowed Chair of Sports Leadership and Administration, and a special assistant to the Chancellor of Black Life at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. Prior to UMass Boston, Dr. Cooper had served as an associate professor at the University of Connecticut in the sports management program. His area of expertise includes sports management, gender and race in sports, racism and other forms of oppression, higher education, and qualitative research. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Joseph Cooper to have his presentation online.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Good morning. Good morning. It is an honor. First and foremost, I want to say congratulations to the entire McCormick Graduate School of Policy and Global Studies. This is an outstanding event. Annually, it's been an honor to celebrate the hard work of the faculty members and the graduate students in the McCormick Graduate School who have worked diligently to organize this important event. We understand that we're living in perilous times globally. As the provost alluded to earlier, the existential environmental crisis, a number of our democracies throughout the continent of Africa, and even in our diasporic African populations globally, are facing significant challenges that are deeply connected to the vicissitudes of colonialism. So today, we are excited to learn about the great research that and interventions that various colleagues are doing as it relates to addressing historical, social, cultural, economic, and environmental forces and factors that contribute not only to the challenges we face, but more importantly, to the opportunities and solutions to empower our collective efforts. Research, collectivism, resource sharing, and working together are critically important for our continued advancement on the continent of Africa and throughout the world. So I am excited to continue to support this event on behalf of our Chancellor, Marcelo Orozco. I want to say good morning, and as he would say, buenos dias. Tu casa, mi casa es tu casa. Just paraphrasing what he would say on this morning. I look forward to joining you all later today, and I want to say thank you all again for being here. Let's continue to build together. Let's grow together. Let's continue to understand the importance of our diaspora, our transnational and internationalist connections as we strengthen our democracies, as we continue to not only undo the harm that has been caused by colonialism, but more importantly, as Robin D.G. Kelly says in his book, Freedom Dreams, The Radical Imagination, let's imagine a new Africa that is learning from our past and strengthening ties to our ancestors and building a better future for the next generations to come. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Look forward to having a great day, celebrating, learning, and later getting to dance and enjoy the great music and the food that will be provided at the mid part of the day and at the end of the day. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy today's event.
And the moment we've been waiting for, the keynote address by the ambassador. But I'm going to invite Professor Edozie to introduce the ambassador. I'm sorry I didn't give you a prompt.
Thank you, everyone. I got away from the program, eating my munchies breakfast, and forgot that we were moving along. Well, it's my pleasure, really my pleasure, to introduce our first keynote speaker, Ambassador Kinza Jawara-Njai. She is, again, the permanent observer for the Economic Community of West African States to the United Nations. Ambassador Kinza Jawara-Njai, ECOWAS Permanent Observer to the UN, is a Gambian national with over 32 years of experience in public administration, diplomacy, and international development. She holds herself a master's degree in international political economy from the University of Warwick in the UK. As a former permanent secretary of the Office of the President of the Gambia, she has served in various capacities, including foreign policy advisor, political affairs officer, and economic development cooperation officer in the Gambia's Foreign Ministry and Office of the President, rising steadily through the ranks within the Gambia's public service. She has been in the service of ECOWAS, the ECOWAS Commission, since 2008, serving as Principal Program Officer and Head of Division in the Directorate of Free Movement and Migration, heading ECOWAS cross-border cooperation program, which works to strengthen cooperation and regional integration from below. It promotes peace and security, sustainable livelihoods, and management of migration and development. Prior to joining ECOWAS, Ambassador Jawara-Njai served as the international consultant for UNDP, UNIFEM, in the Ministry of Gender and Social Affairs, in the Office of the Prime Minister of Rwanda, providing support to strategic planning actions, mainstreaming gender in Rwanda's national economic development and poverty reduction strategy. Ambassador Jawara-Njai has worked extensively with international development partners in development cooperation and partnership building at local, national, and regional levels, and is keenly interested in promotion of regional peace and security, migration, and development, facilitating gender and youth empowerment programs for sustainable livelihoods, as well as establishing regional public goods in Africa and strengthening good governance and regional integration. The ambassador comes to the permanent observer mission to the United Nations with wide experience in public administration, in diplomacy, and in international development cooperation. It is our pleasure, our honor, and we're so excited to welcome Ambassador Jawara-Njai to the podium and to the Africa Day annual celebrations, especially on this very important topic of backsliding in West Africa. ECOWAS is critical. You'll hear in the course of the day a lot of panelists' papers on the role of ECOWAS and democracy promotion in West Africa and its role, especially in the wave of coups. Having the ambassador's voice from the continent is critical, and we're really excited. So I'm going to give the ambassador a little bit of time to come up to address her keynote. Yes, let's thank her.
Conference Chair, Moderator, Devil Patrick Endowed Chair, Dr. Rita Kiki Edozie, McCormack Graduate School Director, Dr. Adugna Lemmy, Special Advisor for Black Life, Dr. Joseph Cooper, West African Research Association, WARA, Director, Dr. Jenny Parker of Boston University and the African Studies Center at Boston University, University of Massachusetts Boston Provost, Professor Joseph Berger, College of Liberal Arts Interim Dean, Professor Pratina Prasad, distinguished keynote speakers, Ms. Oge Onobogo, Director of the Africa Program at the Woodrow Wilson Center, Mr. Gilles Yabi, Director of the West Africa Think Tank Institute, Wati, Senegal, Chairperson of the African Scholars Forum, University of Massachusetts Boston, Dr. Cecilia Idika-Kalu, distinguished professors, faculty members, panel chairs and panelists, conference participants, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am greatly honored and pleased to partake in this very important academic conference and celebration marking Africa Day 2024 at the University of Massachusetts Boston. I would like to sincerely thank the organizers, the African Scholars Forum of University of Massachusetts Boston, USA, and the West Africa Research Association, WARA, for the kind invitation extended to the ECOWAS Permanent Observer Mission to the United Nations, an honor accorded my humble self to deliver the keynote address at this all-important academic event of scholarly exchange on democracy and development in West Africa. Let me begin by extending the warm greetings and best wishes of the President of the ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Omar Ali Toure, and the Honorable Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace, and Security, Ambassador Abdul Fattah Musa, both of whom are keenly following deliberations of this all-important event and are extremely pleased by the demonstrated interest you all have on trends and developments in West Africa. The theme of this important conference and Africa Day 2024 celebrations of the University of Massachusetts, Boston, democratic backsliding in West Africa, contradictions, challenges, and difference. It's not only topical, but being debated at an opportune moment and decisive times in the evolution of politics and governance in West Africa and the world at large. Distinguished scholars, ladies and gentlemen, in looking at the theme of the event with a different lens, my address today focuses on why West Africa democracy is on the right path despite challenges. As the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, forges ahead with its regional integration and development agenda, and working to consolidate efforts in promoting democracy, good governance, and the rule of law in West Africa through various mechanisms and instruments, an invitation to speak on the topic of democratic backsliding in West Africa is a most welcoming opportunity. In doing so, I have chosen to look at the important subject with a different lens. And I wish to showcase why West African democracy is on the right path despite challenges. Indeed, it has been generally acclaimed that authoritarian regime change, referred to as democratic backsliding, is sweeping across the globe, with the West African region accounting for more of the occurrences as evidenced by the successful coup d'etats in 4 ECOWAS member states, namely Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Niger, in a short space of time between 2020 and 2023, in addition to other unsuccessful attempted coups. Another form of the now much talked about unconstitutional changes of government, UCG, is the unwholesome practice by incumbent democratically elected presidents in the region to amend national constitutions to allow for tenure elongation in what some have termed resetting the clock. Against these evolving trends, genuine concerns have been raised as to the feasibility of the survival of liberal democracy in the West African region. This has hinged on what appears to be popular support for the perpetrators of unconstitutional changes of government, the sentiments against Western countries as depicted by the lingering legacies of post-colonialism, coupled with governance and development deficits and the increasing erosion of the social contract between citizens and state. The last point has been succinctly described by S.P. Huntington, 1991, as declining legitimacy and the performance dilemma, denoting the increasing inability of African democracy to meet the legitimate aspirations of a vast majority of citizens, while not denying the obvious reality of democratic backsliding currently being experienced in some countries in West Africa. The recent demonstration of resilience by citizens and institutions in several other countries in the region, as showcased most recently in Senegal, and also in the recent past in Liberia, in Ghana, Cape Verde, and Nigeria, etc., continue to offer hope for democratic survival in the region. In my address, I shall shed light on how ECOWAS, as a regional organization, continues to work with partners to support its member states to ensure the deepening of democracy and good governance, rule of law, human rights, and constitutionalism, using various instruments and mechanisms, including insisting on upholding a zero tolerance for power obtained and or maintained by unconstitutional means. I shall conclude by highlighting the recent democratic gains in ECOWAS, as well as noting that what appears to be a backslide in liberal democratic practice in the region presents an opportunity to collectively rethink how democracy and democratic institutions can be reformed to better deliver democratic dividends to the teeming young population of Africa. In this connection, it is hoped that ECOWAS can count on University of Massachusetts, Boston, WARA, and you all, esteemed body of scholars and affiliate institutions, partaking in this important forum as partners in the democratization and development efforts, as your good works, rich research, interest, and expertise, no doubt, can greatly help shape development policies and practice in West Africa. As you may be aware, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, a pioneer regional economic community within the African continent, was established in May 1975 to promote cooperation and economic integration among its 15 member states. Its founding treaty, adopted on 28 May 1975, was initially propelled by the Protocol on Free Movement of Persons, Goods, and Services, which was adopted shortly after in 1976. Through robust efforts and engagements, other important normative instruments were further collectively shaped and jointly adopted to guide community behavior and thus binding rules for states. The revision of the 1975 founding treaty brought about the introduction of far-reaching provisions for political and security evolution in the community. Key among the normative instruments adopted include the Declaration of Political Principles, 1991, the 1993 revised ECOWAS Treaty, which established a regional parliament and court of justice. The revised treaty also made provision for political cooperation, regional peace and stability, which were subsequently elaborated in different protocols. In 1999, the protocol relating to the mechanism for conflict prevention, management, resolution, peacekeeping, and security, referred to as the mechanism, was adopted. The mechanism noted that good governance, rule of law, and sustainable development are essential for peace and conflict prevention, and those states as one of its fundamental principles, the promotion and consolidation of democratic government, as well as democratic institutions in each member state. In 2001, the Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance also came into force and followed the ECOWAS conflict prevention framework in 2008. These normative instruments thus guide actions on democracy, good governance, and the rule of law in ECOWAS. A key moment in the evolution of ECOWAS was the transformation of ECOWAS in 2007 from a secretariat to a commission, with supranational attributes and tasked with leading community efforts towards the attainment of Vision 2020. The overarching goal of which was to transform the community from an ECOWAS of states to an ECOWAS of peoples. By the end of 2020, taken as inspiration from the African Union Agenda 2063 and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals on the Agenda 2030, and with a view to enhancing national ownership of the regional integration agenda, the community set new goals on the Vision 2050. This was aimed at further realizing the ECOWAS of peoples by achieving a fully integrated community of peoples living in a peaceful, prosperous region with strong institutions and respect for fundamental rights and freedoms, striving for inclusive and sustainable development. This vision is currently being pursued through 4 strategic objectives coined as the 4x4 by the current ECOWAS management, and which focuses on 1, enhance regional peace and security, 2, deeper regional integration, 3, good governance, and 4, inclusive and sustainable development. In pursuing the overall goals of ECOWAS through key strategic objectives and the implementation of laudable programs and projects in various development sectors, ECOWAS has over the years registered marked success in various fields despite accompanying challenges. Notable achievements by ECOWAS by 2020 includes a robustly active and fluid free movement regime in West Africa. The 1976 Protocol on Free Movement was further revised, covering the right of entry, the right of residence, and the right of establishment, adoption of a common travel document, or documents, I should say, the ECOWAS National Biometric ID Card, which is the NBIC, and the ECOWAS National Biometric Passport were all deployed in the region. By 2020, ECOWAS had adopted a trade liberalization scheme to forge a customs union with a common external tariff amid plans to adopt a common currency to enhance solidarity, stimulate value addition, and boost intra-regional trade. From 1992, periodic elections with various degrees of transparency and credibility had become the preferred and acceptable mode of choosing leaders. By 2020, all 15 member states were governed by leaders chosen through democratic elections. Greater freedoms and human rights enjoyed in the region, enhanced women participation in decision-making, historical record of number of times incumbents have been defeated in elections. These achievements, no doubt, are anchored on the development of the adherence to legal instruments and the agreed norms mentioned earlier to promote democratic governance in ECOWAS, which had great leanings on the global wave of democratization of the 1990s that followed the collapse of the Cold War in 1989 and the triumph of liberal democracy. The resultant effect of ECOWAS democratization efforts highlights the 2001 Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance. This instrument adopted to complement the 1999 protocol relating to the mechanism, among others, established regional constitutional convergence criteria for ECOWAS membership based on liberal democratic principles, signed and agreed upon by all ECOWAS member states. Among these principles are the provisions on zero tolerance for power obtained or maintained by unconstitutional means, and that ascension to political power must be through free, fair, and transparent elections. It also covers specific provisions concerning issues such as prevention and management of internal crises, democracy and good governance, the rule of law, and human rights. The supplementary protocol provides for some specific constitutional principles to be observed by all member states, such as secularity and neutrality of the state in matters of religion, separation of powers between the executive, legislature, and judiciary, empowerment and strengthening of parliaments, and guarantee of parliamentary immunity, independence of the judiciary, freedom of members of the bar and community citizens, popular participation in decision-making, adherence to democratic principles, and decentralization of power at all levels of governance. Free, fair, and transparent elections as the acceptable means of acceding to power. Zero tolerance for power obtained or maintained by unconstitutional means. Armed forces must be apolitical and must be under the command of a legally constituted political authority. As such, serving members of the armed forces are barred from seeking to run for elective political offices. Against this backdrop, it is clear that tremendous strides have been made by ECOWAS member states in democratization since the pro-democracy movements in the 1990s, including the adoption and adherence to the highlighted regional instruments, which promotes democratic governance and rule of law, as amply demonstrated by the unprecedented number of times sitting presidents were defeated in elections. For the first time, the African continent, and in many instances, West Africa, witnessed the defeat of incumbents at the ballot box. To compare, as of 1999, only one recorded peaceful alternation of power took place. From 1999, peaceful alternation of power became institutionalized across the continent with 32 cases. In West Africa, we had Guinea in 2009, we had Niger in 2009, 2010, we had Mali in 2012, Guinea-Bissau in 2012, Burkina Faso in 2014, the Gambia in 2016, Liberia in 2023. These positive democratic dividends demonstrates what can be achieved in defending constitutional order with citizens' action, particularly where the position of the community organization is in sync with citizens' aspirations. However, the significant gains registered through ECOWAS's robust actions, initiatives, and interventions appear to be losing momentum in the region, as can be evidenced by the recent successful coups in 4 out of the 15 ECOWAS member states, namely Mali 2020, 2021, Guinea 2021, Burkina Faso January and September of 2022, and Niger in July 2023. In addition to other marked unsuccessful coups in Niger in March 2021, the Gambia, December 2021, Guinea-Bissau, February 2022, and Sierra Leone, November 2023. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, many commentators and watchers of the trends in the West African region thus have wasted no time in labeling this happening in West Africa as democratic backsliding, democratic reversal, and or flagging West Africa as the coup region of the world, meaning that the region has turned or is increasingly turning into a hotspot for the resurgence of repressive military regimes. However, looking at the contradictions and challenges with democratic expectations and experiences in the region, it is important to note the numerous efforts deployed and continue to be deployed by ECOWAS as a regional organization in promoting democracy within a challenging political environment, an environment that is increasingly being dominated by geopolitical and geostrategic interests of major and medium powers. This stark reality have also greatly contributed to the recent reversal of liberal democracy and growing instability in West Africa, and by extension in the wider African continent, as it is taking place within a complex and dynamic global landscape that is characterized by an unprecedented convergence of threats, including geopolitical and geostrategic shifts, economic downturn, currency fluctuations, digital advancements and misuse of electronic and social media, widespread misinformation and disinformation campaigns, climate and environmental concerns, as well as changing sociocultural dynamics. This scenario is not only akin to West Africa, but is also the case globally, as liberal democracy can be said to be on the retreat everywhere, with the rise of neoconservatism and nationalism in the West. As West Africa grapples with the reality, the military in the region has seized advantage of this challenging environment to take over power unconstitutionally and advancing claims of non-inclusivity, governance deficit, lack of transparency and accountability, lack of prudent distribution of state resources, high unemployment rates, poverty, and high insecurity, etc. And these factors have continued to pose great challenges for the region, confronted with a youthful population that has become impatient and intolerant of elected leaders, and as such, moving in support of unconstitutional changes of government, believing there is hope for a better future under new dispensations of government. I'd like to also talk about the withdrawal of the newly declared AES states from ECOWAS. In an unprecedented move in West Africa, 3 of the member states under military rule, despite robust efforts by ECOWAS for constructive dialogue, to plan for a transition and return to constitutional order, notified their decision to exit the community. In view of the need to reconcile tensions between democracy, governance, and development through measures to enhance inclusive production and equitable distribution of democratic dividends, and in the collective interest of peaceful coexistence, security and stability in the region, the ECOWAS Authority decided recently to extend goodwill gestures to the 3 member states by lifting the sanctions that was imposed on them and paving a way for a diplomatic solution to the crisis. Thus, the ball is now in the court of these 3 member states to soberly examine the implications of their decision with a view to perhaps reconsidering their position. ECOWAS will continue to engage them towards this end. However, the region must not compromise on its strategic choice of liberal democracy and its core values and principles, as enshrined in its instruments. Thus, we must insist on the restoration of constitutional order in the concerned member states through dialogue and pressure. Clearly, empirical evidence have shown that military and dictatorial rule is not a viable alternative to electoral multi-party democracy. We all must work with determination to prevent the ECOWAS region from becoming a new arena for proxy wars, as can be seen in the complex alliances that is unfolding in the troubled political situations in the region. In conclusion, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, indeed, democratic backsliding is gaining grounds the world over, not least in the West African region. But what we have witnessed in the West African sub-region in the recent past gives us a different perspective. The outcome of the recently concluded elections in Liberia and Senegal represents sterling examples of mature democracy and democratic consolidation in West Africa. What West Africa, or Africa and the world over, have witnessed is good demonstration of free, fair, and transparent elections, speedy election results collation and announcement, acceptance of results and election outcomes by ruling parties even before the final call, and acceptance of the voice and wish of the masses. That is true democracy in play. The show of statesmanship and sportsmanship by President George Weah of Liberia is worthy of commendation in accepting the outcome of the presidential elections before the final announcement of the result. And the demonstrated resilience by citizens and democratic institutions in Senegal shows good signs of a maturing democratic culture in the West African sub-region. These cases are not only good examples, showcasing that West Africa democracy is on the right path, but also offers hope, renewed hope, for the future of democracy in West Africa. A hope that ECOWAS will certainly nurture and build upon with support from all partners. On this note, I'd like to thank you all for your kind attention, and I look forward to a very interesting day to exchange with esteemed scholars like you in order to be able to learn more of the research that you've embarked upon to better our democratic efforts in West Africa. I thank you all for your kind attention.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ambassador Njai, for your wonderful presentation. At this point in time, we are opening up for question and answers. If you have any question for the ambassador or anything for you to clarify, she's here for us to ask all the questions. But permit me to say thank you to ECOWAS, because I am a product of ECOWAS. I got a scholarship to study at the University of Ibadan. Yes, through the initiative of the Economic Community of West Africa States. And it is through ECOWAS that I met a friend in the same university who brought my attention to apply to the University of Massachusetts, Boston. So without ECOWAS, I'm sure I would not have been here. So Thank you. So at this point, if you have any questions, you raise your hand. I'll bring the mic to you so that the ambassador will respond accordingly. Thank you.
I don't think I need a mic, but...
Need a mic for the...
Okay. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your wonderful talk this morning. Just a quick question. Why did ECOWAS change its mind on Niger?
Thank you. I think I'd said this in the statement.
Okay,
and in the interest of cohesion, peaceful coexistence, and looking at the insecurity that the region is facing, it's in our common interest, our joint interest, to ensure that we go the diplomatic route. And in so doing, every member of the community is family. And looking at the interests of the community citizens, as I also said, we're actually an ECOWAS of peoples. We would rather actually go the diplomatic route to the best of our ability before other decisions are taken. We've done our best, and we'll continue to do our best with the authorities, present authorities, current authorities of Niger, with the hope that they would also listen and they would work with ECOWAS to go on a transition path and to return to constitutional rule, to return Niger to constitutional rule for the benefit of the citizens of Niger and also of the wider community.
Follow-up question, but does that not send the wrong message to the region? That if you pull off a coup and you provide some justifiable cause, even though it's extra-constitutional, there might be a change of mind and they will allow you to actually stay. Would it not have been better for ECOWAS to put its foot down and insist upon a reversal of the coup and bring back the democratically elected individual back into office?
True, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, and ECOWAS does also the same as an organization, and this is exactly what we're doing. When ECOWAS initially made the comments, took the position it took on Niger, again, it's voices, of the masses. Again, it's voices of partners everywhere. I hear you, but we also hear others. And as an organization, as I have said before, and I continue to say, we will continue to respect the principles. We will continue to respect the instruments that are in place, and we will continue to insist and do this to the best of our ability, that every member of the community will respect the rule of law, will respect the instruments that they have signed upon, and will stick to constitutional order. So we're not relenting. We continue to encourage them, and we continue on our path. We are still working with the government in place in Niger, and we are working with other partners in development as well to continue to go the path of constitutional order. And we will continue to pursue this path. No doubt other member states are also watching, and all the more reason why ECOWAS has decided not to do otherwise, because we've already got 4, 3 plus 1. We really do not want other member states to follow suit. So we're encouraged with what we see in Senegal, and we hope that that bright example, sterling example, will be seen by other countries so that they know that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and they can go through liberal democracy, the path of liberal democracy, to get their aspirations. So I am of the belief, and so does ECOWAS, that we will not relent, and the population will not relent. We just need to educate. We need to ensure that the population are made aware of the benefits of a liberal democracy, because in our view, it's the best form of government. So we continue to push on that stride. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Mark Storella from Boston University. First, thank you so much for honoring us with your presence, and also thank you so much for laying out the foundation of the history of democratic development in West Africa that ECOWAS has been such a vigorous champion for. I think that's a very important thing for everyone to hear here. I'd like to follow up on just your most recent comments. There's a tendency, and I have to say my own country, the United States, sometimes indulges excessively in this tendency of applying disincentives, sticks, instead of carrots to try to help people along the path of democratic development and consolidation. I wonder if you could expand more on the incentives that the members of ECOWAS can use, the instruments it has at its disposal to help push people along who have deviated from the path of democracy, as opposed to simply the sticks that often, I have to say, my own country sometimes indulges in. Thank you.
Thank you for that brilliant question. There are so many incentives. First and foremost, I'd like to really point out that the three AES, new AES countries, they call themselves, are landlocked countries. I talked about the common external tariffs. I talked about the free movement regime that we have in West Africa. And I thought about the need for cohesion, the need for us to speak with one voice. Power lies in the majority. Power lies in togetherness, in solidarity. And I would want to say that this continues to be a path of encouragement. We continue to also ensure that members in the space, in the community, in the family, enjoy the benefits of integration, especially free movement. I want to believe that the three countries, yes, have taken the stance, but in the long run, what is going to happen? The citizens would have to ask them, the leaders in place, a serious question when they need to move around the continent, around the sub-region. When a citizen, we have porous borders. We have, you could, in West Africa, I can be in Senegal in this country, for example, and where you're sitting is Gambia. All we have is just this barrier that separates us. The same for communities in Nigeria, Niger, for example. In Togo, Benin, for example, in Ghana, Togo, for example, Aflao, Kanu, Katsina, Maradi in Nigeria, Southern Senegambia, Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, and the Gambia, the Casamas region. So when these countries that are landlocked need to move around West Africa, or their citizens need to move around West Africa, this is great incentive, which they know, but maybe they've overlooked at this point in time. When they would need to go to the city or the capitals to look for visas, just to cross from where I'm standing to where you're sitting, questions will be raised. Because it's not every citizen that would be able to do so, to go get a visa, to come back, to be allowed entry in the next space. Not only getting the visa, which is the right of entry, but the right of establishment as well. Today, you look at the Hausa communities, between Kanu, Katsina, Maradi again. They're all over the space. They're trading. They live harmoniously. You can tell who is from Niger and who is from Nigeria. You can't really tell who is a Senegalese or who is a Gambian, because there are loads of them. Loads of Senegalese in the Gambia, working, trading, residing in peace, establishing. When that becomes a no-no, the citizens will rise up. So it will, I'm really, we're here, we're working, we're policymakers and, practitioners, but then you're the researchers. And I look forward to more research in this direction. But again, these are, to answer your question, incentives that no man wants to leave behind. We're not going, this is in addition to the programs, and the support that we mete out to community citizens, the public goods, etc. When you don't have access to all that again, you're just an independent state in a landlocked environment with a vast majority of population whose needs you have to take care of, apart from all the economic trade benefits, cross-border trade benefits, you would have a population to deal with, and it won't be ECOWAS. And at that point, and even before then, I hope that these three countries, these family members of ECOWAS, will reconsider their position and listen to the voices of the masses. Thank you.
Here's a question.
My name is Dr. Damola Adejumo Haibiowo. I'm a Nigerian, but I'm a postdoc from University of South Africa. I want to thank the Honorable Ambassador for the exposition on the efforts of ECOWAS, and believe me, there are so many things you are doing we never knew you are doing. However, I want to ask this question about our efforts in developing alternatives development framework. When you started your presentation, you mentioned that some people, because of the military takeover, they are emphasizing the fact that Western liberal democracy maybe is not an African thing. And we can't overlook that as academics and as Africans. In the West, liberal democracy developed from their cultural experience and history. In Arab countries, they don't use Western liberal democracy, and we don't hear of military takeover. The same thing we heard in China. We have found out that culture and history matters. Not only as Western liberal democracy has been chaotic in Africa, neoliberalism as an economic framework has not led us to development. But when you look at ECOWAS and the AU framework, it is still based on these two Western fundamental capitalist ideal. And when we see regular election happening in countries, we are hopeful of democratic consolidation, even if those elections are full of violence and malpractices. The same thing with poverty. We still build our framework on neoliberalism. We appreciate the progress we have made, but what effort are we making on Afrocentric research so that we can develop African alternative? Our culture gives insight into what works. It's working in rural area. If we invest in research and we encourage researchers, is there any effort like that? Because I didn't hear that in your presentation. I'm an Afrocentric scholar, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I would say you're right. But for us in West Africa, and for us, for Africa as a whole, and the world at large, what other alternative? That's my question to you. What other alternative at this point in time? We do not want a totalitarian regime. We do not want to see military regimes that becomes, you name it. We want to enjoy the freedoms that I talked about. And we have instruments in place. For now, that's where we are. That's the research that has been done. I could still say democracy is young in West Africa, liberal democracy. But our communities have for centuries long worked and used democratic practices in societies, in communities, using culture, using tradition, even within the home. We do not have a situation where autocratic dispensations thrive. For now, all we can work on is democracy, and we see liberal democracy as the answer. Yes, we can revisit African democracy, but again, I said this, the reason I'm here, and we'll also, as an organization, continue to challenge you, the scholars, esteemed scholars as well, professors, researchers, to inform our policy, to inform our actions, so that we would learn together, we would work, we will do the research that's necessary, we will consult, and that's the point where ECOWAS is at this moment in time. We're happy to engage with researchers. We're happy to engage with our populations because we're there for the citizens. We are an ECOWAS of peoples. If the present democracy, liberal democracy that is being adhered to or practiced in West Africa isn't the best form of government in West Africa, we will listen to our population. That's what we've just done in Senegal. That's what the Senegalese people have done. That's what institutions have done. For them, there is hope in liberal democracy. And they didn't need to go through the military path. They insisted, continued, and it shows strong institutions. It shows that right is right, and we must actually do what's right at this present moment in time, not just for West Africa, but the world over. Liberal democracy must thrive. It is thriving. We've seen the results in Liberia, in Senegal, in Ghana, consolidated democracy, democratic regimes. What other alternative? We will continue on this path until the moment in time comes when we would have a rethink pushed by Africans themselves, and then we would take that path. But I do agree with you that African democracy needs to be accompanied by the principles, yes, but also a look at its culture, a look at what the population, I mean, as I talked about lack of awareness. We go into elections now and again, every 4 years, every 5 years. Who votes? The masses, the majority that are in the provinces, do not even know. They're not actually out there to vote for a particular candidate because of policies, because of programs and projects that has been sold to them. It takes time. The liberal democracy in the West just did not occur overnight. So we are there. Eventually, we would actually have an informed and enlightened population that will tell its leaders how they want to be governed. And when that time comes, we will govern by that advice. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your presentation. I represent one of the African descendants in this country that helped to build this country on our backs, our shoulders. And what I am wondering is, does ECOWAS have any opportunities to have programming where we can interact not only on a cultural level, but also on an economic level, and be involved in helping with African democracy, bringing forth the skills and abilities of women?
Thank you. The diaspora, African diaspora, is very important in our development agenda. The Department of Human Security, Human Development and Social Affairs, we have a Department of Human Development and Social Affairs. And this department also looks at gender issues, looks at issues of diaspora. And together with the Trade Department, the Department for for Agriculture and Economic Affairs, we're working hand in glove to see how to actually reach out more, get ourselves more engaged with the diaspora. We have, as I talked about, the free movement regime, free movement of goods and services, a good trade regime. We would continue to engage in this. My presence in the United States of America itself to come and establish, to come and we have our offices here at the United Nations. We're looking at actually expanding, not only at the UN, but also in Washington, to better serve our teeming population and diaspora interest and need. We're actually working towards that, and I am very hopeful that with your interest addressed to ECOWAS and with other interests in this drive, we will actually get there. At this point in time, we don't really have a concrete program on diaspora, but we continue to engage. And apart from, our diasporan Africans living in the West and obviously contributing so much to economic development realities in West Africa, we continue to engage with them. We continue to make sure that the policies, the trade and economic policies, are liberal and allows for wide participation and investments in our sub-region, and we'll continue to work towards that. We'll continue to expand this also to not only Africans, diasporan West Africans, but also to the wider African diaspora. So we look forward to your interest. We look forward to similar interest as well coming our way, and we will give it positive thinking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. I'd like to just echo the comments of my colleagues who came before. Your remarks, I think, have opened up a number of issues that I'm sure we'll be discussing throughout the day. And I'm particularly interested in this question around the role of the diaspora in relating to ECOWAS. But there was one issue that I did not hear you address, which I understand as being central to the issue of economic integration. That is a common currency. And I understand, I'm not an expert on this, but those countries to which you referred who have now come to power through another form of transition have established a common currency, which ECOWAS has been unable to do. And I would like to just discuss the question of the Sahel, the challenge that raises to ECOWAS, and where does the establishment of a common currency, where is that on the agenda of ECOWAS?
Thank you. The common currency. You talked about the three countries have established their common currency. It's in the making. It's on paper. It's talk. They have not arrived there. It has taken us over a decade to reach where we are today. We still cannot have a common currency. We have the Anglophone-Francophone divide within West Africa, in ECOWAS, I would say. And maybe that has, I would not say maybe, certainly that has actually contributed to the delay. The convergence criteria have also contributed to the delay. But we're still hopeful, and we're still working towards timeframes. We were there, nearly reaching the threshold to actually migrate into an ECO, which is the West African Common Currency. And again, our bottleneck was still the same countries that are actually talking about their own common currency. We have the issue of the CFA, which is the CFA, and this is by 9 of our member states using a different currency from the other 5 Anglophone member states. Again, there's 3 countries that tells us that they are working towards a common currency, or as you said, have actually established. They haven't established. They're part and parcel of that group. And it's a big issue for us. It's a stumbling block. But we're hopeful that with what's happening also now, within themselves, within the Francophone zone, within this CFA zone, they would see the need for a quick transition from a CFA or all these multiple currencies we have in the region to better have a single currency and work towards adopting the ECO and making sure that we move with what we have at this point in time. Because it's only through that we can benefit economically, and we can also make sure that the region prospers, and we're working towards a shared prosperity, we hope, and we continue to forge ahead to ensure that we have our efforts realized. We will continue to work on that path. But again, I want to say the common currency for the AES, Alliance des États du Sahel, is still just talk on paper or talk out in the media. It's it doesn't take 24 hours to get there. It doesn't take beautiful statements to say, we've got our common currency. Yes, they have come together. Yes, it's a mini REC, they call themselves, but these are landlocked countries. No man is an island. They need each other. They need ECOWAS, just as we need them, because they're part of the family. And we're very hopeful. As I said, I gave vivid examples, and I talked about free movement regimes, etc. We're hopeful that they will reconsider their position. We will continue to encourage them to do so for the benefit of all, for the benefit of our citizens. And we really hope, and we will work to realize the interests of the population. On that note, I'd like to thank you for raising that, and I hope that you yourselves will study this more and inform our policies on the way forward. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. As I close, I would like to congratulate the 2024 Africa Scholars Forum ECOWAS Africa Democracy Students Awards recipients. Congratulations to Rebecca Yemo and Dennis Joko for winning the award that you got. We are very hopeful that receiving this award would be of immense benefit to your research work, and we want to wish you all the best in the defense of your forthcoming PhD conferrers this May 2024. Congratulations, and thank you.
So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's a lot of food for thought. We are behind on time, and we need to move really fast. We're breaking into the panel sessions, panel 1 and panel 2. Panel 1 will be in room 340, which is the Bayview Conference room. And panel 2 will be in the Founders Room, right next door to it, 3545. It's to your left, to your right once you are out of this room. You can grab some tea and coffee and a snack on your way out. And we'll just have a working tea break while we join the panels. Panel 1 will be on the theories of West African backsliding, and panel 2 on social, economic, and environmental thrusts.
Thank you, Abby, and thank you, everyone. As we close this portion, I just wanted to thank the ambassador again. I know everybody wants to network now, but we've missed our break because we've had such an exhilarating morning. So we're going to have to move into our breakout rooms. But I do want to say that later on in the day, we have a long day. Later on in the day, around 5, we will be acknowledging the ambassador again. So please stick around for that. All right. Okay, let's move into our breakout sessions. Thank you.